So moving on to the first part, which is the marketing waiting room concept explanation. And I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. Let's hope this time I'm going to make it. So what is the marketing waiting room? In essence, in a nutshell, it's a system that helps brands attract and retain prospects' attention and eventually persuade them when they're ready to purchase something, right? So what is exactly the idea behind it? The thing is that there is that ambiguous and uncomfortable space where a brand meets a person or people that one day might become a customer or a client. And that is ambiguous and uncomfortable because between that moment and the moment when they're ready to buy, there's like a lot of fuzziness. You don't know, like something is happening, but you don't know, like you try a lot of things and you eventually kind of get really overwhelmed and lost. And that's why I came up with this concept of the waiting room, where you can conceptualize the space where you retain your prospect's attention. So it's becoming a little bit less ambiguous and becomes more tangible and also scalable eventually, right? So what is happening within that space is essentially providing experiences and providing content through different channels within that waiting room. And the most important thing is that you need to put this content and these experiences strategically, or you need to plan them strategically and deploy them strategically along your buyer's story. And that's how you do effective marketing. So your buyer's story is essentially a chain of events or decisions, problems, questions, whatever happens in your buyer's life or career until that lead them to the purchase decision, right? And the closer you are to this with your content and experiences, the more efficient or effective your marketing is, right? So what is this buyer's story actually? How do you know your buyer's story, and how do you align this? How do you align your content with it? I came up with a method which is called the empathy probing method. And that helps you identify these sort of stages, right? And I identified a couple of stages, and within that stages, I kind of probe for like different things by asking a lot of questions, like how does your buyer goes through that journey of from being oblivious to buying something. And it starts with demand eligibility. And demand eligibility is essentially when your prospects or your audience becomes eligible for your product, but they haven't experienced any problems or symptoms yet, right? So for example, you're eligible for plumbing services the moment you have pipes in your home. That's already eligible, right? And that's regardless of whether you have an issue with pipes or not. You might have issues with your pipes one day, right? So the moment this happens, that somebody has, for example, their first home, this is already when you should, if you're a plumber, it would be great if you already are on their radar from that moment, right? Because when the moment of purchase or the moment of the decision to purchase something from a plumber happens, you're going to be top of mind. And this can happen over the course of a couple of years, or it can happen like within 5 minutes, right? But essentially what happens later, so you're eligible, you have a home, you have pipes, everything is great until the moment when you start experiencing symptoms. And this is the moment when your future buyers start experiencing some problems, but they don't necessarily know what is happening yet, what these problems are connected to. So for example, they might have a smelly house and they don't know that it's connected to some problems with pipes, right? So then they go on and they try to find out, like, what is happening? What is going on? Where is the smell coming from? And while they're doing this research, they find out, okay, that might be because of pipes, right? And that's where the demand awakening happens. That's where they're realizing, okay, there's a problem with pipes. I might need a plumber. But first, let me search for solutions. Maybe I can do something myself, right? So they go on and try to DIY this thing. And if they can't figure it out, then they'll call a plumber. Of course, it doesn't have to be this way. It can also be like, hey, I smell something, I'll call a plumber immediately, right? The buying trigger can occur at any time, but essentially these are the stages that your buyers go through. And then, like eventually they're going to decide which vendor to go for, and they're going to purchase. And if you know all of these, if you know what is happening at each of these stages, then you really know what kind of experiences and what kind of content you can deliver to your prospects. And that's what really shapes your strategy, content and experiences strategy within the marketing waiting room. So that's basically the idea of the marketing waiting room. And there's another kind of reason why I came up with this, and that is creative limitation. Not sure if any of you heard of that, but creative limitation is this, idea of purposefully limiting yourself to foster creativity. Because if I ask you like, hey, come up with an idea, if I don't give you like any limitations to this idea, you're paralyzed. You don't know what to do. But if I tell you, come up with an idea for something very specific, then you can, like, sky's the limit for you. And, you come up with really creative, really good ideas. And that's why the waiting room concept gives you this really limited space where you can come up with strategies, with content, with experiences, with different channels, with something really creative, really out of the box, really something cool and unforgettable, that will make your brand really stand out and be the first one to choose when your buyers are ready to purchase something.